Evelyn was 22 when her life changed forever. She had always known hunger. Not the kind that made you miss lunch, but the kind that gnawed at your ribs, that made sleep impossible. Her father had died when she was just 12. A heart attack, they said. But Evelyn knew the truth. It was poverty that killed him. The weight of unpaid debts, the endless struggle to put food on the table. It had squeezed the life out of him, leaving Evelyn and her mother to fight alone. And fight they did. Her mother took up menial jobs, scrubbing floors in houses where no one remembered her name. Evelyn had grown up watching her mother's back bend under the weight of survival. She swore she would never end up like that. By 16, she had mastered the art of going to school hungry. By 18, she understood that beauty was a currency. By 21, she had learned the painful truth. Morals could not pay rent. Then, in 2021, a lady she met on Instagram officially introduced her to the life of a runs girl. It was one night when Evelyn was scrolling through Instagram when a message came. It was late. The kind of late where silence settled over the world, where even the street dogs had curled up in the shadows, waiting for dawn. Evelyn lay on her mattress, the dim glow of her phone the only light in the room. The walls of her tiny apartment pressed in around her, trapping the heat, the scent of struggle, the quiet suffocation of poverty. Her thumb scrolled absent-mindedly through Instagram. Her feed was a gallery of lives she would never live. Girls in designer dresses clinking wine glasses, soft laughter frozen in time. Hotels so grand they didn't look real. Cars with doors that opened like the wings of a bird. And then there was her, Diana. Elegant, rich, flawless. She had followed Diana for months, studying her, envying her, worshipping her from the shadows. She never missed a post. She was always there, in the comments, dropping admiration like breadcrumbs, hoping Diana would notice. So beautiful. Wow, I love this dress. Omo, soft life, no beef for everybody. Diana was living the kind of life Evelyn had only seen in movies. 5-star hotels, vacations in Santorini, posing beside the latest G-Wagon, her nails glistening under the sun, her smile effortless, as if she had never known suffering. Evelyn wanted that life. No, she needed it. And then, as if the universe had finally heard her silent prayers, her phone vibrated. A message request. Her breath caught in her throat as she tapped it open. Diana. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. But no, the name was real. The profile picture, the blue verification check, all of it. Diana had sent her a message. She swallowed hard, her heart pounding. I see you on my page a lot, sweetheart. You admire my lifestyle? Evelyn's fingers trembled as she typed back. Yes, ma'am. You're living my dream life. A pause. 3 little dots danced on the screen. And then, I can change your life. Evelyn stared at the words, her breath shallow. This was it. The door had opened. All she had to do was step through. And Evelyn, blinded by desperation, walked straight into the fire. The life Diana introduced her to was one she never imagined she would live. Expensive restaurants, 5-star hotels, designer clothes. It was a world where men paid for company, where money erased guilt. At first, it felt wrong. Then, it felt normal. Diana was right. The men paid well. They didn't ask questions. They didn't care about pasts. They wanted perfection, and Evelyn learned how to give it to them. For the first time, money was easy. The fear of eviction disappeared. Her mother ate 3 full meals a day. Evelyn could finally breathe. But then, Diana introduced her to someone else. Someone different. A billionaire. And that was when everything changed. Wealth had a scent. It wasn't just expensive cologne or the crisp linen of tailored suits. It was in the air itself, the way it lingered in places where poverty could never enter. The mansion was beyond anything she had imagined. A fortress of marble and glass, its gates guarded by men who looked like they had never smiled in their lives. She had stepped out of the car with Diana, her palms sweating, her heart pounding so loudly it nearly drowned out the silence of the estate. Inside, the billionaire waited. He was not what she expected. He was large, with a round belly that strained against his silken body. His fingers were thick with gold rings, his eyes sharp, scanning her like a man assessing a product before purchase. Power clung to him like a second skin. Evelyn had heard his name whispered before, Mr. Obina, a man so rich he could buy anything, even people. That night, she learned what it meant to be truly owned. He paid well, more than well, the kind of money that made her hands tremble when she held it. Money that erased suffering, that turned shame into something easy to swallow. The kind of money that made girls forget who they used to be. But there was a price. His request came casually, almost like a joke. She had expected strange desires. She wasn't naive, but nothing had prepared her for what he wanted. Lick my wounds. She thought she had misheard. But when she looked into his face, there was no laughter.
No amusement.
Just expectation. She had seen the wounds before. Small, darkened spots scattered across his skin like healing pimples. No blood. Just there. She wanted to gag, but she kept her face blank. Diana had warned her. Don't say no. Just do it.
So she did.
The first time, her stomach twisted so hard, she thought she would vomit. But then the money came. A stack so thick it felt unreal in her hands. Her mother's hospital bills were gone. The landlord's threats disappeared. She could breathe. And so she did it again. And again. And again. Each time, he would laugh, a deep, satisfied chuckle, telling her how much he enjoyed the ticklish sensation. Each time, she convinced herself it was just a job. But with every visit, something inside her cracked. She told herself she would stop. She told herself it was enough. Then he bought her a house in Lekki Phase 1. The kind of house people dreamed about. A house that meant freedom. No more worries. No more hunger. So she stayed. And she kept licking his wounds. But something was changing. Something was wrong. She didn't know it yet, but her time was running out. Evelyn should have walked away. The money, the house, the luxury, it had all come so easily. Too easily. And if life had taught her anything, it was that easy things always came with a cost. She told herself she would leave soon. Just one more time. One last visit, and then she would disappear. She would block his number, leave the house if she had to, and start over. But money was a powerful chain. Each time she wanted to run, she thought about her mother, her new comfort, the way she no longer had to wake up before dawn to scrub floors. She thought about the fridge stocked with food, the designer bags in her closet, the way men looked at her differently now. She had built a new life, and walking away meant tearing it all down. So she stayed. And then the first sign came. It was just a pimple. Small. Harmless. Sitting on the inside of her left thigh, like any other blemish. She barely noticed it at first. A slight discomfort. A faint itch. Nothing to worry about. But by the next day, it had grown. It pulsed beneath her skin, red and angry, tender to the touch. A deep ache settled into her leg. A dull, throbbing pain that refused to go away. She ran her fingers over it and flinched. It was hot. Still, she ignored it. It wasn't until it burst that the fear began. It happened while she was taking a shower. She had barely stepped under the water when a sharp, tearing sensation ripped through her skin. A searing pain shot up her leg, and then warmth. A slow, thick trickle running down her thigh. She looked down. Blood. Not much, just a thin line of crimson swirling into the water. But as she touched the spot, a sickening wetness met her fingertips. Her stomach twisted as she stepped out of the shower, her heart pounding in her ears. She wiped the area clean. The pimple was no longer a pimple. It was a hole, a small, open sore, dark at the edges, raw and exposed. It was unnatural, the way it had gone from nothing to this in just 2 days. She stared at it in the mirror, a sick feeling curling in her gut. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. Evelyn convinced herself it would heal. She applied ointment, covered it with a bandage, waited. Days passed, then a week. It didn't heal. Instead, it grew. The pain worsened, the once small sore stretching wider, the skin around it darkening, hardening like old leather. A burning sensation spread through her thigh, crawling beneath her flesh like fire, licking at her bones. She could barely walk without wincing. By the second week, it had spread down to her knee. A slow, creeping horror settled in her chest. She stopped leaving the house, stopped seeing Mr. Obina, stopped replying to his messages. For the first time in a long time, she was scared. Not just scared, terrified. This was not normal. Hospitals,
Doctors.
endless tests. She spent the next month chasing answers. Each time, she walked into a clinic with hope. Each time, she walked out with nothing but confusion. The doctors couldn't explain it. It's an infection, one said. We'll run more tests, another assured her. Take these antibiotics, they told her. But nothing worked. The wound refused to close. Instead, it festered. It started to smell, an awful, rotting stench that made her gag. She scrubbed it, changed the bandages 3 times a day, but nothing helped. Then came the fevers. Nights spent tossing and turning, her body drenched in sweat, her skin burning. She lost weight. Her once glowing skin turned dull, her cheekbones protruding, her once perfect legs now covered in bandages that hid the nightmare beneath. She couldn't hide it anymore.
She had to tell someone.
So she called Diana. And when Diana finally arrived, when she unwrapped the bandages and saw what lay beneath, she screamed. Evelyn had never seen fear in Diana's eyes before. Until that day. You have to see him, Diana whispered. Evelyn's heart stopped. Who? Diana swallowed hard. Obina. A sharp, cold silence filled the room. Evelyn shook her head.
No.
He'll know what to do, Diana insisted, voice urgent. This is not normal, Evelyn. Evelyn's pulse thundered in her ears. She had spent the last 2 months avoiding him, blocking his calls, ignoring his messages. The idea of seeing him again sent a chill down her spine. But deep down, she knew Diana was right. This was not normal. She needed answers, and there was only one person who could give them to her. So, despite the fear clawing at her chest, she made the call, and the moment his deep voice rumbled through the phone, calm and knowing, she knew she had made a mistake. A terrible, irreversible mistake. And there was no going back. The house in Lekki Phase, one should have felt like freedom. It was everything Evelyn had ever wanted: marble floors, high ceilings, a kitchen so big it could fit her entire childhood home. But no matter how beautiful it was, it did not feel like hers. It felt like a cage. And with every passing day, the walls of that cage closed in. At first, she had convinced herself that she was in control. She had the money. She had the house. She had the power to walk away whenever she wanted. But she never did. She told herself she would leave after the next visit. And then the next. And then the next. Until 2 months had passed. 2 months of ignoring Mr. Obina's calls. 2 months of excuses. 2 months of avoiding the man who had given her everything and taken more than she could ever admit. And then one morning, she noticed it. A small pimple. At first, she thought nothing of it. Just a tiny bump on her thigh. Something she could ignore. But by the next day, it had grown. By the 3rd day, it had burst. And what was left behind was not just a sore, it was a wound. A wound that refused to heal. She tried everything. Antiseptics, ointments, home remedies. Nothing worked. The wound darkened, the edges curling in like burnt paper. It spread, not just across her thigh, but downward, creeping toward her knee like something alive. The pain was unbearable, a deep, aching torment that refused to let her sleep. She told herself it would go away, but it didn't. And when she finally went to the hospital, the doctors did not know what to tell her. They ran tests. They prescribed medications. They whispered in the hallways, exchanging nervous glances that sent chills down her spine. But nothing stopped it. The wound kept growing. And so did the fear. The money she had once flaunted so carelessly became her only hope. She flew to the United States, desperate for a cure. The doctors there were different, colder, more clinical. They did not look at her with pity. They looked at her like a puzzle waiting to be solved. But even they had no answers. They tried experimental treatments. The wound would start healing, only to stop, to spread again. It was as if something inside her was refusing to let her escape. As if the price of her choices had finally come to collect its debt. By the time she returned to Nigeria, the wound had devoured her leg. It was no longer a question of healing. It was a question of survival. And so, the doctors made the decision for her. The leg had to go. She barely remembered the surgery. The anesthesia blurred the pain, but it could not erase the horror. She woke up to emptiness, a missing piece, the price of her choices carved into her very flesh. She moved to the UK with her sister, leaving everything behind. The house, the money, the life she had built on the foundation of her own destruction. She had once thought wealth would save her, but in the end, it had only cost her everything. And as she sat in a wheelchair, staring out at the rain-soaked streets of London, she finally understood the cruelest truth of all. Some debts can never be repaid, and some wounds, no matter how deep, can never truly heal. Evelyn had always believed that money was the answer, that wealth could erase the years of suffering, that luxury could wash away the stains of poverty. But now, sitting in a wheelchair in a foreign country, she understood the truth. Money had saved her once, but it had also destroyed her. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, at the girl she no longer recognized. The same flawless skin, the same delicate features, but the emptiness in her eyes told a different story. She had traded a part of herself for a life she thought she wanted. And in the end, it had taken more than she ever imagined. She thought of her mother, the woman who had scrubbed floors so Evelyn could have a future, the woman who had warned her about the dangers of easy money. She had ignored those warnings, and now she was paying the price. But regret could not change the past. It could only shape the future. Evelyn knew she could not undo what had been done. She could not grow back the leg she had lost, but she could stop others from making the same mistake. She began to write. She told her story, not to gain pity, but to open eyes, to show young girls that not all that glitters is gold, that the price of luxury, when paid in dignity, is far too steep. She spoke about choices, about self-worth, about the danger of believing that wealth was the only way to escape suffering, because true escape was never about money. It was about knowledge, about skill, about the ability to build, to create, to stand on one's own without relying on the hands of men who only saw women as commodities. Evelyn was just 25, too young to have seen so much, too young to have lost so much. But she had learned the hardest lesson of all, one she wished someone had taught her years ago. Entrepreneurship is freedom. Financial independence is power. And no amount of money is worth the price of your soul. So to those who would listen, to those who still had the chance to choose differently, she had only one plea. Teach your daughters. Teach your sons. Teach them how to create their own wealth, how to build without compromise.